Thank you so much for coming. We never thought we'll be at this point where we'll be sharing the work. It's really exciting. And what we just do is start straight away. We'll have a lot of things to share with you. The most important ones are the clips of the films that we've made throughout these 18 months. So it's really exciting. So this is it.
So today we're going to be introducing Co-POWeR for those of you that haven't heard about it, and explaining what it is, and explaining the different work packages and synergies, because it wasn't just the University of South Wales that was involved in the project. We're going to describe the activities of work package 5, so that's the work package that Florence was the co-author of. And we're going to describe, share our experiences of community engagement and co-creating, explain some of our research outputs, present our summary policy recommendations, and discuss dissemination and future plans.
So Co-POWeR came about during the pandemic, and it was essential for, the consent of the government to say what's happening with Black and brown people, what's happening in the community. So the project was funded 2.5 million by UKRI to go and really find out what's happening in terms of well-being and resilience in the ethnic minority communities. So it was a consortium on practices of well-being and resilience. And these are the work packages, and these are the teams. This is a team. Actually, the team was made up of 9 Black and brown female professors. There was just one guy, Sabu, who did a lot of the statistics. So from all these universities, 9 different universities, it was an amazing project for us here at USW to be part of. Actually, not just amazing, but it was a real privilege to be part of the project. That photo there is when we went to Westminster.
Yeah, so across all of the different universities, there were different work packages that looked at the different things that were impacting communities and families. So work package 1 looked at emergency powers. So emergency powers in the sense of the policing of the pandemic, and when people could go out and when they had to stay in and that kind of thing. But also the problems that were faced because of that, and the racism sometimes people faced when they went out, and the assumptions that were made and things like that. Work package 2 looked at children, young people and families, and different things related to that, such as education, which was severely disrupted. Work package 3 looked at caring and carers, and that looked at the different problems that paid and unpaid carers faced throughout the pandemic, especially as they were kind of facing the brunt of things really and putting themselves at risk. And work package 4 looked at physical activity and nutrition, which was a problem for everybody throughout the pandemic. A lot of people were saying they were putting on weight, and then some people were finding different solutions and so on. So what we did as work package 5 is that we looked at all of the other work packages. So we had the advantage of being able to be involved with everything across the project really, I guess. And the idea was to empower families and communities through positive narratives. Through positive narratives, some of the things that we found were kind of negative, but by giving people a voice and allowing them to be heard, this is where the positivity came through, because it was helping them. So we were involved with all of the other work packages, and some of the people that they interviewed and did focus groups with and so on, and we captured that on film.
Okay, so the one thing that happened right from the start was, because I'm a documentary filmmaker, they said to me quickly, Florence, you're the one who's going to make the films for all these things. So I said, oh, hang on a second, we have people in Wales as well. I would like to have groups in Wales. And I can say to you now, proudly, that we made sure that all the work packages came to Wales to talk to Welsh people or to communities in Wales, because I didn't see us, USW, or our faculty, like just making the films, but where are the voices from Wales? That was so crucial that we became part of that. So University of South Wales and University of Sussex were in charge of doing this creative stuff. And these are the creative stuff that we did. Also, this is the team. So University of South Wales, we had us. Emia Jenkins is not here. and then several alumni. This project would never have happened if we didn't have ex-students and sometimes current students who made the creative things really happen here. So we're really thankful to them. And one is here with us today, and maybe later on during the Q&A, they will come forward. And so we were tasked with coming up with a documentary film. Theatre and graphic narratives were Sussex. We were going to do one documentary film. I thought to myself, how can we make one documentary film with so many communities, so many issues? It's not possible. So I went wild. And with me and filmmaking, I'm always hungry. I went wild, and we just went head over heels. And I think when I talked to Lisa about it, I said, Lisa, I've overfed myself. How am I going to try and cut down? So Wendy, when we started, this is how we started engaging the communities.
Yeah, so this idea then that we were going to engage the community, especially in Wales, so we went out there, and this was one of the first sort of things that we shared to try to get people involved and try to give people an understanding of why we wanted them to be involved in the project. We explained that we wanted to find out about their experiences of the pandemic, what happened to them, what did they need, what difficulties did they face, or indeed any positive things that they experienced. And we explained to them the point of the project was to feed back to the government to tell them what people needed, and hopefully that this would lead to some policies, new policies being introduced and some new changes being introduced. So that's basically then how we invited people, and we did have a really good response, and it did get bigger than originally intended,
yes.
but
yes.
It was in a good way, yeah.
Some communities were suspicious. They said, why are you coming now? Where were you before? And they were saying, can we speak? So we went through a whole process of visiting many communities more than once, 5 times. In the boxing club here in Cardiff, when I went there, I went more than 6 times before we even started filming. Why are you coming? So there was suspicion first. Why do we want to go and tell the government their experiences of the pandemic? But it worked out okay. So you can see here, in terms of the Welsh communities, we have the Tiger Bay Boxing Club, we have the Roots Girls Club in Newport, we have individual carers from Bristol, London, Dorset, Leicester, and Cardiff. We have the Alcalas Food Bank, which is on Broadway. We have St. Joseph's Boxing Club in Newport. You can see how the work packages, every work package worked with communities in Wales, with their own communities in England, but with communities in Wales. So as we say, all of them came here. And then we had work package 1. We had cases of police brutality, police death during the pandemic. So from Newport, Cardiff, this is where we didn't go to Swansea, unfortunately. We tried, but we didn't go there. So as you can see, it's all really clear how all the work packages engage with groups here, either through focus group interviews or actually filming their individual stories. So across the bridge there, you could see in Bristol, Weston-super-Mare, we didn't put Southampton there. There's Southampton, there's London. We were all over the place, just going all the time to different places. And maybe Wendy can talk about trust. She wrote a nice blog, but I think trust became the key thing that people we had with people, for them to open up and for them to invite us into their spaces. And trust, for us, making documentary films is the one key, is gold. Okay, you want to?
Yeah, the idea of building trust as well. There was one thing that was mentioned, and it was about one of my colleagues in one of the other universities, about academics being in the ivory towers. And I feel that that's definitely not what Florence and I and Emir and Charles and all of the team did. We went out there and we engaged with the communities, and we tried to explain to them sort of the process of how things worked, and tried to give them a voice so that they felt actually a part of the project, and we built up trust with them so that they did engage in the process of co-creating. Sometimes they came up with their own ideas. Sometimes they sat down and they thought about it and they said how they wanted to be filmed and where they wanted to be filmed. And this was all part of building up the trust that we gave them. We gave them the opportunity to do that, and I think probably the confidence to do that. I remembered the boys from St Joseph's Boxing Club in Newport. They were running around the river in Newport, and we have a statue of a famous boxer. Is it David Pearce? Am I right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they actually just gathered around it without being asked or anything, and they gathered around it and they all started shadow boxing, and that was just them kind of taking the initiative. So people definitely wanted us to capture what they wanted and capture their lives.
So in terms of our community engagement, we can see how some of the things that we did. Over at the far right there, focus group happening with work package 4. The researcher came down. Those are some of the boxing boys. The one there in the middle, it was so wonderful when we took the Tiger Bay Boxing Club to the Pontypridd campus, and it was like a day out for them, 3 hours there. They went around, they had something to eat, and then they had the focus group. For them, they had never been to that campus before, and even when they came here, they had never been here before. And I think we could see that this project was doing something for them, and it was doing something for us. It was like a give and take. And then when the boxing club was open, we can see the minister there, Von Getten, who was invited to a new space that one of the boxing clubs, or Tiger Bay, had. We had the community day in Newport. People turned up, and then we were privileged to have the studio, the television studio, where the guy, Mohanad Bashir, spoke really passionately about, and movingly, in very kind of melancholic way, about the death of his brother killed by the police during the pandemic. And again, the red car there, that's Wendy's car, but participants told us, this guy said, I live in this region, I want to jog there. I want to be seen to be jogging in the region in the area where I live. So we went there, and we did that. And so we had, in total, I was given the mission, we were given the mission in Work Package 5 USW to have maybe 12 to 15 participants, right? But we ended up having over 50. And that's why I overfed. But the time was there, and the resources were there for us to do it. And because we had already invited people to tell their stories, I think it was difficult to turn them down. And people were calling us, actually, tomorrow we're going to film in in Bristol. People are still calling us as people as realistic. So it was so unrealistic to have just 12 participants to talk to. So that's what we did. And we feel that the fact that this creative intervention happened in the way that we did, we feel that people really feel good about themselves when they see themselves reflected. And I think that improves their well-being, that they're being heard, right? Somebody out there is giving them an opportunity to tell their stories in a kind of creative way where they are co-creating the stories. So now I think we're just going to go through some of the projects that came out instead of one documentary. So this was a short poetry film directed by Emir, and one of our community engagement representative, because in all the work packages we had people who were like guiding us, community engagement reps, and she talked passionately about her adoptive daughter who died during the pandemic, and we encouraged her to say, why don't you reflect something? So she wrote a poem, so that's a 5-minute. And then IK is also a poetry film, again, talking to people. A guy just wrote a poem about carers, and we filmed that in the dance studio. Tiger Bay Boxers. Again, we can see there in terms of co-creating. Emir filmed something, the guy jogging, and when he finished, we showed him. He said, no, I don't like it. I don't like the way my thumbs are up like that. Can you do it again? We did it again. He was happy. This is the St. Joe's talking to all the boys, the seat and the coaches, they say it's a safe space for young people to come and be. And during the pandemic, it was so crucial that they were doing classes, boxing classes online, and they kept relationship with the young boys. So everything we're showing you are separate films, and you'll see the glimpses. So justice for Moayed Bashir, who died on the 17th of February 2021. Again, it's another film. And then we have these young girls in Newport who use the space of being creative to have their well-being, to promote well-being. Food Sanctuary in Adamstown during the COVID pandemic is another really nice project about how the community was fed in times of crisis. And the imam there was just fantastic in giving us access to do the filming. Black women as caregivers, 6 women from different cities, 2 from Cardiff, Bristol, London, and Dorset or Bristol. Plant Power, this one was premiered at the end of the project conference last week, 2 weeks ago, again in Bristol, about during lockdown, what people did to just make themselves feel good. And the plant, caring for plants and planting was very crucial in that time where you are alone. What do you do when you're alone? That's how these 2 people, Judith and Amrish, that's what they did. And then when the lockdown finished, they engaged the communities around them. This is in Southampton, how this Center for African Caribbean Elders really is crucial for their general well-being, and during the lockdown, how that really affected them, and coming back again to join the club meant a lot to them. This is one of a very sad story. A young guy in Weston-super-Mare harassed by the police in terms of emergency powers. Police had excess powers during the pandemic. Unfortunately, in some circumstances, they misused the powers. And this guy, within a space of 2 months, he was stopped twice. Second time, handcuffed, pepper sprayed, choked, and many things happened to him. I think in the end, what happened to him during that period of the pandemic, he had never taken medication in his life. He went to depression, PTSD, high blood pressure, bad eyesight, and we were just very surprised. Last August, we were called to say he died. He just dropped dead. And so we finished the film, but it's not quite finished in the sense of the wife doesn't really know how we should end the film, because we're still working with the family how to end the film. They have 4 kids. So the Leeds Conference happened almost 2 weeks ago. And I think we can say with certainty that the way that we engaged the communities here in Wales was very crucial to the work of Co-POWeR. And so the boxers from Newport attended the conference, 5 of them. They're somewhere there in that group photo. And I can really say that with certainty that the conference delegates were very impressed with how these young people carry themselves, to the point where some delegates from USA are now planning to have like a cultural and social and educational exchange between the boxers and some group of young men in Milwaukee. So that was very good. And then the work package 2 in London is planning to invite the boxers to London when they launch the youth panel of Co-POWeR, which carries on. So that is very good for them, and it's good for how we engaged with the people, with the communities. So, Wendy, you want to talk about our policies, just a summary of our policy recommendations when we went to Westminster?
Yeah, so this is a summary of the policy recommendations. So what we found was across Work Package 5 is that people benefited from engaging in the creative work. So they engaged in the filmmaking process and also the other creative things through Work Package 5. Because our colleagues at the University of Sussex, they did things like graphic narratives and a theatre play. So there was a positive impact on people through these sort of artistic events and interventions. And Florence and I also held a workshop at Newport campus, and that was a poetry workshop. And we received a lot of positive feedback from that as well. So one of the key policy recommendations was to give people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds the opportunity to engage in artistic work, to support their well-being and their resilience.
And the idea that when people create things themselves as well, it becomes really useful as a space for voices. So there should become people from ethnic minority communities. There should be an increased possibility that they should be making things themselves, making things about themselves, making projects about themselves. And then it helps with many things. Rather than being represented, you represent yourself. So we feel that based on how we engage with the communities and based on what they were saying, we felt it's really important that the question of visibility should improve and it should come from their perspectives, not to be made by people who don't understand issues within that community. That's what we thought. But this is only a summary. We have longer, a longer document. Yeah. So maybe this is feedback from one of the coaches at St. Joe's.
One of the things with St. Joseph Boxing Club, there was which really highlights this idea of engagement and the way that, you know, this quote here is that they did come to Westminster. They came to Westminster and they came to Leeds and they really engaged in the project and they really took it seriously and they wanted their voice to be heard. And the young boys that came to the Leeds Conference, everybody was put into little workshop groups, and when they fed back to everybody else, the things that they said were so enlightening and they said it in such a coherent way. You know, I actually put it on my social media that these boys are available for consultancy, you know, because these are the people that we should be asking. We can do all the academic stuff we like, but we should be going out there and we should be asking people directly and we should be bringing them in, and they should be getting involved in, you know, in the decision-making process and stuff. Yes.
So I think on a kind of how our research engaged the community, this is just a very small example of how the engagement with these different communities impacted on how they see themselves and how they started standing back and looking at what happened to them during the pandemic and how, for example, in the boxing club where they call themselves, we are the beacon of diversity. One of the things that happened, which we couldn't force, which we had to negotiate, was when we went to the boxing club in Newport, and we said we wanted to have focus groups and to film the Black and Asian boys that were there. They said to us, we've been here for over 40 years, we've never distinguished or separated these groups. So if you're going to come and work here, our boys don't know that this is Black, this is white. They know they are black and white and different kind of skin tones. But when you come here and do that, you've started something that will not leave us well. So if you're going to come and do research here, you have to film you have to do it with everyone. But we went back, it was back and forth with Leeds. Leeds were the lead university, and we had to find out whether we could film white boys and interview white boys in the focus groups. The answer came back, no. It was specifically for BAME, Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. So we said to the coaches, this is what is going to happen. We're going to film everyone because that's how you function. But can't we just have 5, 6 boys for the 2 two different research teams that are coming from London and Leeds. So we negotiated, and that was accepted. But our filming, as you will see in the longer film and in the excerpt that we're showing, it's a mixture of the boys. But I think it's so important that we don't go into communities assuming that we have the power. This was a negotiation that we made, and they understood, we understood them, and they understood us, and we came to the middle. And so when Zhivago, who was named after the film Dr. Zhivago because his mother liked it, he came to Westminster and he started seeing the value of what we were doing, and he came to Leeds as well for the end of the conference. And I think that's one community that we need to hang on to. We have a good base there in Newport to do something really special, even in terms of the impact pathways, because they've started going into schools with their program to encourage and inspire young kids. Okay, so we know that communities know themselves. We know that communities are very knowledgeable about what's happening, but when they're not given the opportunity, or when they're not even seen, they don't exist. And so what I learned quickly was the fact that the chance to make films about people who are not normally seen is prime. It's so really crucial. The question of visibility. So when Usman Semen talks about it, when others ignore us, should we ignore ourselves? Of course not. In the dark, even others don't see us, I see myself and I shine. I take this quote back to the boxing club here in Cardiff. During the pandemic, what they did as young boys was they helped people in the community. They went to deliver food as a charitable thing. They are coach. So there's potential in that community. The young boys, that they know what they need to do to make their community, because they say nobody is going to come in and help us. We have to help ourselves. And they know they have the potential, and they know they have the skills and ability. So in the longer film, one of the boys says, we are here, but we know that nobody sees that we are here. We do many good things. We don't even have apprentices, apprenticeship. We don't have opportunities to do that. Talent, scout talents don't come here to look for us because we're in Tiger Bay and they've branded us like a bad area. But we know that we are very, very good. And I feel that maybe film can help to highlight and showcase people in their different dimensions, in their different social identities, because there are so many in terms of intersections. Moving forward, we've started disseminating the films. Do you want to, the projects, you want to talk about some of these?
Yeah, so conference and festival submissions. So festivals is Florence's area of expertise, because they'll mainly be film festivals. Journal articles, we already have a journal article that it's a joint one, Florence and Work Package 3, the carers. So the experience of black female paid carers during the pandemic, which you'll see the footage is really striking. And then the Co-POWeR blogs are already out there. So they're mainly co-authored by myself and Amir Jenkins. And we're planning as well to hopefully develop a set of educational resources, because the footage that we have is so powerful, and there's two things that could be done. One is to use that within higher education, and use it within social policy, public services and so on, as an educational resource. And also Welsh Government is talking a lot about decolonising the curriculum. So Florence and I have been discussing ways in which we can take some of the film footage and make it into educational resources moving forward. And then Plant Power has been played already at Leeds at the conference, and it's going to be played as well in Bristol at the Malcolm X Community Centre on the 10th of March. And speaking to the people that were involved in that, they really wanted it to be held in a community venue where the local community would see it, and not some place that was difficult to get to, or they felt that they wouldn't feel comfortable in. And then Black women as caregivers during COVID-19, the planned screening, at the University of Oxford, again, that's in March. And Florence has sent a screening proposal to the Visible Evidence Conference in Italy for September. And there's going to be lots of other opportunities as well, isn't there? It's not, that's not a finite list.
And the dissemination, I think we want to be screening the film that I've been speaking with Cherry, that it will be useful for us too to see the full-length films here. Maybe another Research at 4, we screen a lot of the films here for students, for us, in Cardiff chapter, and we will go to all the communities where we made the films to show them back. So that's the plan. Thank you.